6 o'clock and it's time to get our meeting started. Just to let you know that please turn off your cell phones. Okay, and the mayor is excused. Otherwise, everybody's present. The Pledge of Allegiance going to be done by Councilmember Brad, and then the invocation is going to be by Councilman Lopez. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, you say if you lack wisdom to ask, well, I'm asking, Father. I'm asking to help be here and help us with the wisdom to guide the city staff and us to bring about the things that are needed for the city and the community. I especially bring to you that the kids have started school. I ask everybody watch out for them, obey traffic, be on the lookout for the kids and help them and cheer them up, and that they have a great school year and working together with things that are on the agenda and parks and stuff, that we go forward to help the community as a whole. And again, I thank you, Father, and I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. We thank you. Okay, and we, moving on to item number 5. Any comments from for agenda items? No. For non-agenda items? None. Okay. Then we'll go on to the new old business. Number 7, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee appointments. This is an action item. Jamie?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and Council to appoint 5 applicants to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Staff recommends approval as all the applicants served previously and have a vested interest in continuing their service. You have an attachment of Resolution 22-20, which put this new commission into play, and the citizen applications, the 5 of them. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
I have one, Vice Mayor. As I read through this, I was reading it all seems in order, except I don't see who and how and what protocol is followed to bring things up on the agenda. Like, we know any one of us can bring one up. I didn't see that in here.
Yes, so council has requested a work session to be conducted to discuss the rules of procedure and tasking. And so once we have the committee appointed, we can schedule that for the next meeting in August if the council would like that.
I just thought it was an action item. That would have been already something we were ready to take care of.
There are no members on the committee currently, so the action item tonight will be making the appointments, and then the work session would be moving forward with those appointed members.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, I think especially initially as we set parameters for the committee, I think that they as individual members will end up having to bring the items because we don't really know what they're going to be at this point. We have broad parameters, so as we move forward and meet with them and discuss with them what they may want to accomplish, I think at that point we probably would put agenda items on future agendas once we sit down and start to discuss the direction they want to go and the kinds of things they want to look at.
That's kind of what I want to know, to make sure they brought up what they wanted on the agenda, and then there's going to be input from you two, I imagine, so everything will work out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
My hope is that in having the work session, one of the issues that was raised was this idea of sharing expectations. So it's going to be an opportunity for the council and for the advisory group to share those expectations. But I fully expect them to be the ones that will bring ideas, and then we can discuss them at that point. And again, if they're seeking stuff, we as staff can support that, but I really would like to see what they bring to the table.
Okay, so anything we do here won't tie their hands. They can adjust anything they need to do going forward.
Yes.
Yes, and then the rules of procedure would be reviewed at that work session, and goal setting and that kind of thing, once these members are actually appointed to the new committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have Any questions or concerns? If not, it's an action item.
Make the motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move on to item number 8, resolution number R 22-032 regarding the Safford Unified School District's intergovernmental agreement. John?
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. This is a request for mayor and council to approve and adopt resolution R 22-032, authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement for facilities use between the city of Safford and Safford Unified School District. On July 14th, I attended a governing board meeting of the school district at which they adopted this exact same document. And I did want to say that it was really an interesting experience. They were very generous, very excited about the agreement, and they were really looking to kind of reconnect with the city and do other things in the future. So as this particular document may evolve going forward, and there may be some other things. Lance Henry and I have already been talking to them about another program they have that we may be able to connect on them with that would be beneficial for us both. So I think that they definitely showed an interest in developing a relationship with the city, and they were, again, quite excited about it, and it was unanimous that they adopted it. So I just wanted to share that with you. As far as the agreement itself goes, I will read a few of the parameters that are in the agreement. These are parameters that you have seen before for the most part. The school district will provide additional access to outdoor practice fields. The city will provide in-kind assistance on an as-needed basis. We will provide $10,000 annually in financial assistance, and again, that will be used based on the assessment of the impact on the both the fields and the facilities. The school district will provide us access to the middle school gym at 698 West 11th Street. The city will schedule and monitor activities at that facility. And the school district will be responsible for security, opening and closing the facility. We will have access to the facilities on Bulldog Boulevard, which include basketball courts, pickleball courts, and tennis courts. And of course, the pickleball aspect of it is just tennis courts that are striped for a dual purpose. We will have access to the 8th Avenue walking track. It also has a provision in it for moving forward so that if we identify capital projects that we want to work on together, if we decide we want to light some of the facilities or something, we can make an amendment to the existing agreement so the agreement itself is able to evolve. It is anticipated that a project of that nature actually will occur behind the bus barn on 14th Avenue. When we did that street, Public Works ensured there was a curb cut there already, so there may be a roadway going back to those additional fields behind the bus barn and Ruth Powell School, so that's an example of what may be added at a future date. And then, of course, the agreement itself has renewal provisions that will automatically renew, but we do have a period in which we can make comment or terminate if we so choose. So anyway, that's what I have. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, John. I just have, just one. Will this program with the schools and that, will it include the wrestling program?
Vice Mayor, we don't currently anticipate that. We're in the process of basically evolving what will occur at that facility. So, for example, in this year's budget, we put some money in. It's anticipated right now that may turn into a volleyball program. So this will be an evolutionary process, and obviously depending on the monies that are available and the interest, if individuals come to us, we've got, like Ed Ragland does the basketball, if we have similar type activities and people approach us, we can always bring that to council and seek amendments to the budget and then begin to utilize that facility in that manner. We've already started having some conversations with the school district, although not in advance of you adopting, but just trying to get a sense of, if we do move forward, what are the various activities that can happen at the facility. We've met with the manager from Thatcher to look at their programs and how they're put together, so we get an idea of what it would mean if we start to put together, if it were to be a wrestling program. So at this point, there are no explicit plans to do that, but if there's an interest in the community and they were to approach us, we would take a look at that determine what cost, if any, or if that's something that we would be able to do, and then we would bring it to you for a
Because
decision.
the reason I brought that up is that I know a family that had their kids enrolled in the Thatcher wrestling program, and they pulled them out in favor of whoever's running the wrestling program here in Safford.
Okay.
So I just to let you know. Okay, any other?
Yes, sir.
Go.
Some of what I saw coming from Thatcher and Pima's suggestions and stuff had some adult programs in it, and I myself would like to stay away from the adult ones at this time until we know what's going on. And especially since high school and grade school, I'd rather concentrate on the youth.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, Vice Mayor.
Anybody else have any other? Okay, it's an action item, this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second to approve resolution number R 22-32. Tammy, would you read it?
Resolution number R 22-032.
Oh, we need to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead, sorry.
Resolution number R 22-032, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, adopting and approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Safford and the Safford Unified School District for the use of school facilities.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, before we move on, I'd like to note the presence of Supervisor Paul David.
Thank you for coming. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 9. It's reports, information only, discussion. First one is the P-card report.
Vice Mayor, I did have questions. Cabrina met me at the door and straightened me out.
Okay, thank you.
And the other ones too, or no?
Huh?
And the other ones too?
Yeah, on all levels.
Okay. Give her a bonus.
Yeah, 'cause I,
Good job, Cabrina. Where are you? There, I see you now.
Thank you. Okay, then, okay, over 5,000 revenues? Same thing? Over $5,000 expenses? Okay, now then we'll move on to number 10, announcement of current events.
Vice Mayor, I have something. Tomorrow, we'll be receiving Senator Cinema at noon, so the council is invited to attend at the airport. And I'll be heading this up, this task per the mayor, okay? So all of you are all invited, so please let me know.
well, what time?
Noon.
Noon,
Yes.
okay.
Okay. Was there anything else?
I have nothing further.
I'll have a Siegel meeting the 19th in Bisbee. Okay. Then we'll move on to number 11, request for future agenda items. I would like, if this is the place for it, a report on what is it, the pay it forward or utilities
From the heart.
from the heart, of how that's going.
I do. I'd like if there's anything out there that anybody said they'd get back to us on, that they get back to us on it. One of those things that, well, get back to us on it within a year or whatever. Is anything lingering out there? I'm ready to hear it.
Okay, Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, is there anything specifically you
I
have?
think we got, I forgot them too. And I knew I was gonna forget them at the time. That's why I said, bring this back to us.
Okay,
And I saw people writing it down, so I know they have them somewhere.
And with that,
That's-
and that program, from the heart, I'd just like to know, how it's going, how many people we're helping, and that type of thing. Just an update.
Vice Mayor, I have something real quick. I want to say thank you to Jamie and Manager Gonzalez on the good job you guys are doing with these big boxes, so keep it up, okay? So keep on them and do what you have to do.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 12, a report on operational items. Nothing's listed. Then 13, we'll close the regular meeting and reconvene into a work session. Okay, we're back into the work session. Number one, Family and Medical Leave Act Policy. Danielle?
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. We have 3 policies to review this evening. The first is the FMLA policy. This is a request for Mayor and Council to provide direction on the current FMLA policy. Changes to this policy were precipitated by the need to align the FMLA policy to the sick leave and vacation leave policies, as well as update verbiage to more recent FMLA regulations. Changes reflected in the edited version of the policy include: first, allowing employees to accrue sick and vacation hours while on FMLA in accordance with the sick and vacation leave policies. Requiring employees to use their accrued sick and vacation hours while on FMLA. An emphasis explanation on the use of sick and vacation hours when the employee is receiving supplemental wages such as workers' comp and/or short-term disability, and updating reasons to take FMLA with the current FMLA regulations. Research from the Arizona League of Cities and Towns showed that all that responded required the use of sick and vacation accruals while on FMLA. The recommendation is that the accrual rate for sick and vacation hours during FMLA match the accrual rates in the sick and vacation policy. This allows for consistency related to how leave time is accrued across all policies. It is also recommended that employees be required to use their accruals to avoid excessive amounts of time off. An example would be taking a 12-week unpaid FMLA and returning to work and taking a 4-week vacation. And with that, do you have any questions?
Vice Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Danielle, can you answer this question? I don't know if you can. Is it gonna be a legal issue with the manager approving the FMLA requests, or do they have to go through you, or how does this work?
No, there's no concern with approving the FMLA requests at this time.
From the manager too, right?
So when a manager finds out that an employee needs a leave of absence, they are supposed to reach out to Human Resources, and then Human Resources checks their eligibility
Okay,
for
so we're not gonna be
FMLA.
violating no HIPAA laws. That's
No.
all what I'm asking. That's what I'm getting down to.
No, not at all.
Well, you don't have a display up here so we could follow you.
No, I don't have a presentation for these policies.
Because in that, kinda in the same thing Councilman Anazola was asking, I wasn't sure you wanted the manager to be part of it or not, because it's scratched out, then it's added in, so.
Are you talking about the FMLA revisions?
Yeah.
For the
right here.
request, right?
Yeah, because it says FMLA request must be routed for approval through Human Resources and the city manager.
That was my question
Then
too.
it says the same thing, but it's scratched out. So what is it? You want the manager on there or not?
Oh, I'm sorry. I see what you're saying now. So I thought it might be burdensome on the city manager to have to approve all of those. So I went back and forth on that and left it as is for now. But typically it's something that just runs through Human Resources, and we're checking their eligibility. And we actually, by law, don't have, we can't deny somebody FMLA if they're eligible for it and turning in the proper paperwork for it. So,
So disregard the scratch out?
yeah.
Okay, so now, it says that you approve it, but it doesn't say anything about approving them coming back. Does that have to take place too?
What do you mean by approving coming back?
Because failure to return to work.
So employees are not to return to work until they're cleared by their physician. So as long as they get a return to work notice to Human Resources, they are fine to return to work.
You'll accept it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Danielle, this is an appropriate question. How many people do we have on FMLA or?
It ranges. I think I have between 5 and 7 at one time typically.
Okay.
And they're so far they've been very short term.
Very short term, okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not now. We'll keep reading because we're just, so far it seems like you want to make it fall in line with another policy, so.
Right, and probably the biggest change with this policy is that we do want to require employees to use their sick hours and their vacation hours for pay when they're out. So I just want to bring emphasis to that because that is probably the biggest change. So right now, an employee can take leave and be off for several weeks and not be required to use their pay and take it unpaid, and then they have large amounts when they return, and we want to avoid that. And when I reached out to the league, all of them came back and said, yeah, we require them to use their sick and vacation when they go on FMLA.
You're 18 that responded.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll just, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the employee sick leave policy.
Okay, the sick leave policy. This is a request for mayor and council to provide direction on the current sick leave policy. Changes to this policy were driven by concerns voiced by employees. The management team participated in a collaborative review in order to provide a set of revisions that address the concerns. A little bit of background, the city of Safford has previously required that accrued sick leave balances for retired employees be deposited into a retirement health savings account. There has also not been a length of service payout schedule established to encourage tenure. Employees have voiced concerns that they can't access their accrued sick leave funds easily through the RHS. RHS accounts require that there be a medical expense to access the funds and a claim process for the employee to be reimbursed. Based on the most recent benefits survey, employees prefer to have the option to have a cash payout or a deposit into their 457B retirement account of their accrued sick time rather than going through the medical and reimbursement processes of an RHS. There are two requested changes that need direction from council. The first is a recommendation that the RHS account be discontinued and both a cash payout and or a deposit into the 457B retirement be offered to employees that are resigning or retiring. This will allow employees to choose how their funds are processed. Could you please provide direction if you have any for that change?
I like this change in particular myself.
I've had some employees say, and you touched on it, that it's hard, they're having difficulty getting with the RHS.
Correct.
They have to submit a form after they paid for it in order to get reimbursed?
Yeah, so it's processed by claim. So you have to actually have some type of medical claim, pay for it, and go do the paperwork for the RHS and then get a reimbursement for it. So they can't use their funds as they need to unless they have a medical claim. And then it's been described to me that the reimbursement process is not easy or user-friendly, if you will.
Not fun.
Right.
But now, because on your summary, some people were still for this in a way. I don't know why, but you can't let them keep all three?
No, I did look into that option, and when you have an RHS implemented, you cannot offer the other options, and all eligible employees have to put their monies into the RHS.
Okay,
And that's just an IRS designation.
And we're not gonna have any trouble, kind of like the RHS where you had to have a high deductible, low deductible, all that goes away too?
Right. Moving to the cash option or depositing into the 457B, I don't foresee any problems. It'll be a lot more flexible for the employees.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Anybody else? Okay. Then we'll move on to number 3, the employee vacation policy.
I do have a little more on the sick leave policy, if that's okay. There's one more thing that I need direction on. There's a recommendation to establish a length of service schedule to reward those with extended lengths of service with a higher payout, and a recommendation to calculate the payout at the base hourly rate at retirement. This calculation is to help administrative processes with a simpler calculation and to benefit the employee with a slightly higher payout. Do you have any concerns or questions with that change?
Could you summarize it real briefly, Danielle?
So essentially, if you look at the second page of the policy, it was allowing for all of those that retire at 5 years of service to get 66% of their accrued sick hours. With this new schedule, if you have years of service, 5 years of service, you get 25%, 10 years at 50%, and 15 at 75%. So we want to establish that schedule to encourage tenure and length of service, and then also reward those that have stayed longer with a higher payout of their sick hours.
Thank you. A little bit of it was 66 for
For everybody,
after 5 years.
right.
Now, this is coming about now because they don't have to put it in their health thing when they terminate or retire.
Not necessarily. It's just to encourage length of service. It's not necessarily related with the other change. It's not uncommon to see a schedule set like this, just to encourage, the longer you're here, the more you get as far as your sick hours.
Well, I thought if you left, it was gonna go into the RHS.
We're recommending that the RHS be removed.
Yes, and then now this come about because we're gonna decide that.
It's two separate concepts, two separate changes.
The RHS is
Am I
more
getting-
for when you retire.
Yeah,
I could work
but-
5 years and get a payout on my sick leave.
But if we stayed with RHS, this topic wouldn't even be here?
No, it's
That's
an
what I'm asking.
additional
This is coming
change.
about now because you're doing this
No,
now.
they're separate.
Two separate concepts.
Okay, well, I'm,
Vice Mayor,
Go ahead.
Councilman Lopez, it's a separate benefit that we looked at and tried to basically rationalize as well, right? So we tried to look at the policy in its entirety, so the RHS issue is a separate issue entirely from this
yes, I
issue.
know.
Okay, all right.
But we wouldn't even be talking about giving this longevity stuff if we didn't do away with RHS.
The goal is to, if we're bringing a policy to council, just to look at its entirety. So yes, it was brought up because employees were concerned about the RHS, but then that did prompt us to look at the entire policy for changes.
And it's me looking at the citizens' money. You already have something built. We're already trying to make a benefit better, and then now they want more on top of that.
So after having discussions with the finance officer, so right now, everybody, as long as they have 5 years of service, gets 66%.
Okay.
So this
That's what I
schedule,
mean.
this new schedule actually balances that out a little bit, because if you only have 5 years of service, you only get 25%. And then 10 years of service, 50%.
My concern is actually the opposite of yours, Councilman Lopez. This is an earned benefit to me. If I'm an employee, I've earned this benefit. So I'm not satisfied at all with going all the way down to 25% for the 5-year employees. And a little bit of, well, not a little bit, a lot of math would be required to figure out exactly, you're saying it's probably pretty close to even, but you're taking the 15-year plus to 75 and dropping pretty much everybody else down to 50 and 25. And I'm actually concerned in the other way. To me, this isn't the city's money. This is employee money. This is an earned benefit.
I think another thing to keep in mind that's important is that it is sick hours and not vacation hours. So a lot of times you'll see that employers don't pay out all sick hours. And
Right.
I think this schedule is actually pretty generous. Now, as far as vacation hours, it's a different story.
different.
We're recommending that employees, and you'll see that in the next.
Right. As an
policy.
employee, I wouldn't differentiate
Right.
between the two. Because again.
Yeah,
to-
from an
to-
employee perspective, that's
Right, right.
understandable.
Right.
From an employer, typically sick leave is looked more as like a short-term disability policy.
But it's still, you would call it an earned benefit, correct?
Yeah,
That's what I
it's
mean.
accrued, yeah.
Right.
Gene, did you have something?
I think I'm picking up.
Had a comment, kind of, not necessarily, but kind of along the lines of what Councilman Hemphill said. You know, we've had benefits in the past, and it's been recommended to us that we change those. And we've had some issues with that. So there are people right now working under the assumption that after 5 years, they're entitled to 60%. We're gonna have a problem if we change this at this point with those who already would be at the point where they would be entitled to the 66%.
I think it's a small population with the 5 years, and I think the people with 10 and 15 years are going to appreciate the higher payout as well. And there's also some really good benefits changes as far as the vacation policy that we'll review shortly. But you do have a point, yes.
Because, of course, the people that are there at 10, I mean, they'll benefit possibly, but And it might be a small population, but it takes many.
Right, and it'll matter to the small
Before you
population
end
of
up with
people that it
problems.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not satisfied with the lowness of or like Councilman Seal said, maybe there's a way to leave it at kind of grandfather the ones in now. If I was 8 years in, this is me, actually, by the way, this is probably where I have so much opinion on this subject. I was at Wilcox for 8 years before I for good and lose it again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in favor of very pro-employee policy on this.
Right, and if you knew that going in, that's one thing.
Right.
But if you
Right.
were under
And
the
I
assumption.
did. I knew,
Right.
it was a frustration, but
Right.
it's something I could have.
But if you're under a
Right.
policy that would allow you to receive that at 5, then you would have been a little bit
Right,
upset about it.
Right.
I would guess.
yes.
John, go ahead.
So based on this conversation, maybe we can do a date at which it's enacted at a different level. So just like if you had state retirement and you came in at a certain year, that
Right.
benefit package looked a certain way. If you came in at a later year, then you got the other one. So maybe we can use a date of hire
Right.
to differentiate and leave the 66% for those who were already there, and then you enact thereafter the newer
Right.
policy,
I would-
if you want to
I
go there.
prefer something like that.
And I would too, but just for the record, since this is just a work session, I would still not be in favor of those numbers for just me.
So you would want higher percentage
Yeah.
payout earlier on?
Right, again, maybe 66% for 5 years is a little too generous, possibly, but 25, to me, that's still an earned benefit. It doesn't matter a lot to me how long you've worked somewhere to get compensated for the benefit that you earned from your employment.
I think that the idea was, when we discussed it, was essentially that you were rewarding those people who stayed longer.
Right, but an earned benefit, I don't need a reward for something I've earned.
Right.
I see how it's backwards
Technically.
now, so.
Yeah, and I understand because I've experienced it in my own work. I get it conceptually. I just think 25%, even for somebody who's been here five years, is
A little low.
a little low for a benefit they earn.
Okay, here's what I found online.
But
Okay,
again, work session, we
Right.
may be fine with, as a group, with those numbers. I don't know.
Well, again, this is the time to provide
Right,
us
right.
with that feedback, so if we need to make some alterations, we can when we bring it back.
I like the idea of the dates, different dates.
Okay?
I'm with you. If it's theirs, we gotta work some way for them to keep it.
Even dropping everybody to 50 and after 5, or I don't know what the numbers could be. I realize you need direction, not just my
well,
musings.
and the schedule we came up with was based on a lot of the league responses we got. Even though there was such a wide variety of answers, we tried to kind of meet in the middle with those answers, so that's really where it came from as well. So,
Okay.
And should we go to the vacation?
yes. So moving on to the vacation leave policy, there are 4 main changes to this policy. So I'd like to discuss each change individually, if that's okay. And the first one is very similar to the sick leave policy, and it's in regards to the RHS as well. So same concern, employees don't prefer that their monies go into that RHS, their vacation monies, and they do prefer that their monies, they have the 457B option or the cash payout. Do you guys have any questions or thoughts on that change?
Yeah,
I like that one again.
I'm good so far.
In addition, there is a recommendation in the past, there's been a limit to how much vacation hours somebody can get, and that was 216 hours. We're recommending that employees receive all of their vacation hours when they retire and resign. Is there any concern with that?
Not with what they get, but you're still talking, I think you'll get there in a minute, with when they take the vacation.
So we want to remove that limit of 216 hours as far as how much they get paid out.
And no limit at all, correct?
Yeah, so
Right.
as long as they're in good standing when they leave the city, we're recommending that they do receive all of their accrued hours as far as vacation hours, yes.
And then back to whatever percentages we ultimately decide.
So there's no percentage listed in this policy. As
Oh,
far as
okay.
vacation, so the sick leave policy had the
Right,
percentage.
right. The vacation has no percentage.
No percentages, it limited how much they could get to
Right.
216 hours. So we'd like to do away with that and them get all of their vacation hours if they're resigning or retiring.
Go ahead.
So I understand that you could work here 30 years and never take any vacation time and take it all out at the end? Is that what
So
you're saying?
you can only accrue up to 360 hours.
Okay, so it went from 2-something to 300.
Right, I'm not sure when that change was. So you can accrue up to 360 hours, but the policy, for whatever reason, was written to the point where you could only receive 216 of those accrued hours.
Okay.
And so we'd like to do away with that limit.
I was misunderstanding. I thought you were saying that we were gonna take that limit off and pay you for every hour of vacation.
No,
you
they'll
ever
still
use.
only accrue up to 360. We're just not going to limit how much they get if they have accruals past 216, so.
But there still is a maximum of 360.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or direction on those 2 points?
And what was good standing again?
I'm sorry?
The good standing, if they're in good standing,
Yeah, so, as long as they fulfill their notice and they're in good standing, they would receive their vacation hours, yes.
Anybody else?
So the next concept is max amount of vacation to be taken at one time. Currently, there is no limit to how much vacation time that can be taken, resulting in scheduling conflicts. We've recently had scenarios where employees request up to 2 to 3 months of vacation at a time. The recommendation is to allow the max amount of vacation days to be taken at one time to be 30 calendar days within a 12-month period to avoid having employees take extended vacations that strain departmental schedules and workloads. Any concerns with that recommended change to the policy?
Danielle, that wouldn't, going back to FMLA, if they could go beyond the 30, obviously, for FMLA.
Right, so FMLA goes up to 12 weeks, and we cannot limit that as
Right.
long as they're providing physician certification for the need for leave. This is just taking a
Just
vacation.
vacation, yeah.
How does that correlate with how many hours they can earn in a year?
So everybody earns a different amount based on how long they've been here, and I'd have to look at the policy, but there's no, it's not gonna affect how much they accrue, if that's what you're asking me.
I'm just,
Or put another way, is there any employee that can earn 30 a year? More than 30 a year? Is that kind of what you're asking?
yeah.
If you could earn, if you're capable of accruing more than 30 a year, then maybe you ought to be capable of
I
taking
would
them.
think you ought to be able to use as much as you earn.
So this is just in regards to taking more than 30 days at one time.
Right.
But you
So,
said
I mean,
per
they can
year.
take separate,
Didn't you say per year, though?
right, but it's to avoid them taking more than 30 days at one time. So they
Yeah.
can take multiple vacations as long as it's
Yeah,
approved by their
60
manager.
days, just not at once.
All right. Gotcha.
Any other questions?
You're still on scheduling
Am I still on scheduling?
Yeah.
Is that what you
on
asked?
when they can take it? Is that, okay, I'm gonna get to where, holidays gonna count in there against it, the 30 days?
So I had it written as 30 calendar days, so yes, holidays would count in calendar days.
You can't take more than 30, including the holiday.
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Okay, the next change is vacation taken during the resignation period. Currently, there is no restriction regarding employees using vacation time during their resignation period, resulting in scheduling conflicts. There has been recent scenarios in which employees have requested more than 2 months of vacation time right before they resign. It's recommended to establish a restriction that doesn't allow employees to take vacation during their resignation period. To avoid having employees leave their positions before proper scheduling and recruitment can occur. If extenuating circumstances occur, the department head and the city manager can approve exceptions to this restriction.
I'm good.
Okay, and the last change is a cash out option for current staff. Currently, employees at their max vacation accrual of 360 hours don't have an option, a buyout option to allow for flexibility and avoid loss of vacation hours if they are accruing over their max and are unable to take vacation. Research from the League of Cities and Towns showed about half of the respondents offer a payout option, and of those that offer a cash payout option, there are qualification limits as well as set amounts for employees that can buy out. The recommendation is to allow employees that are nearing their max and have already used 40 hours of vacation for that year the ability to buy out 40 hours of vacation, limit once per year, and must have 280 hours after payout. Do you have any questions or direction for that change?
Now, the police officers differ.
They are probably the ones that would utilize this benefit the most, yes.
Because they get the 80 hours of holiday pay.
This is a benefit that we do want to offer them despite that fact. So they'd be able to buy out 40 hours of their vacation in cash once per year if they're hitting their max, and it's to avoid them losing their vacation hours, to allow a little bit of flexibility to not lose hours if they're not able to use all the vacation.
And they can do that once a year, 40 hours.
Yeah, once per fiscal year.
They can do it, but nobody else.
No, this is for all staff. I just believe that it'll affect the police the most, like they'll utilize it the most.
Okay.
Any concerns or direction on that change?
And just as you put it in the materials, but all your recommendations are echoing what the staff has brought, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they sparked the
Right.
changes to the
They mostly
policy,
came
and then
from
we
the
looked at them as a
employees.
whole, and
Right.
there might be a few things that weren't necessarily from the employees, but they are the ones that sparked the
Right.
policies to be looked at.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Then we'll go ahead and move on to item number 4, Planning and Zoning Commission appointment process. Jamie?
Good evening again, Vice Mayor and Council. This is an appointment update to the process we use to appoint planning and zoning commissioners. The municipal code company will be updating one section to remove obsolete items. When the Planning and Zoning Commission was first created, how that would be staggered was still in there, so that'll be removed for being obsolete. So you have how the code currently reads on the first page, and then at the request of the mayor, staff has reviewed the process and has recommended updates. The city attorney has reviewed the suggested changes and is ready to move forward with an ordinance to update the process if the council wishes to do so. The updated section is proposed to read as follows, and the most important change is vacancies on the commission shall be filled by vote of the council at a council meeting. Previously, they were appointed by the mayor and then approved by the council. Any council member may nominate an applicant from the pool of applicants supplied by the Community Development Director. More than one applicant may be nominated to fill a commission position. The nominee selected to fill a commission position must be approved by the council. So that's the most substantive change. Did any of you have any questions on the other items, the other numbers?
Just seemed like some housekeeping.
Yes, so if you're all okay with that, I can move forward with the attorney on the bringing back an ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have something?
I don't know. I don't think so. I do have a question, but I don't know how to ask it. So go ahead.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 5. That's cemetery policy. Lance?
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. Based on inquiries at the July 11th City Council meeting, this item is being brought back for information and discussion and direction with respect to potentially expanding the benefits of the Safford Cemetery. Bear with me as I kind of go through the process, how we got to where we're at today. So back in November of 2021, staff presented an update on the cemetery policies that hadn't been updated since 2008. Part of this update was to clarify the benefits to active city employees, firefighters, and their dependents. And the 2008 policy read, city employees, employee dependents, and active firemen must purchase a cemetery space unless the cost of the space is waived by the city council. However, as an added benefit to the city employees, employee dependents, and active firemen, the city shall provide free opening and closing of the grave of any such individual at the cemetery. And then underlined in there, it said the space must be purchased unless the cost is waived by the city council. Employee dependents are limited to spouses and dependent children. The benefit does not apply to retired or former employees. So in November, we brought that back because we wanted to clarify that so you guys didn't have to vote on whether to waive the cost of a space. So we updated the policy to read that current city employees, their dependents, and active firemen who wanted interment at the Safford Cemetery will receive one cemetery space free of charge in the event of loss of life. As an added benefit, city employees, their dependents, and active firemen, the city shall provide the free opening and closing of the grave of any such individual. Employee dependents are limited to spouses and dependent children. These benefits do not apply to retired and former employees not working for the city at the time of death. The section of the policies, the section of the policy and regulations was again updated in July 11th because we had a little lack of clarification in the dependents of firefighters. So we changed the verbiage to change firemen to firefighters and their dependents and all active city employees and their dependents as well. So as the policy read, that's all we changed in the July meeting. So it's always been a benefit to the city employees, active firefighters, and their dependents to get a free opening and closing of the grave in the event of loss of life. The added benefit of one free cemetery space without the council waiver was included in the November 21 update, and language clarifying the dependents was included in the July 22 update. These benefits have always only applied to current employees and firefighters and excluded retired or former employees. It's staff recommendation that for tracking and clarity purposes that the policy remain as approved in July 2022, and the copy of the latest policy that was updated in July was attached. So this is open for discussion because I know it came up as a discussion when it came back in July. So.
Well, the mayor's not here, because at that time, I suggested that we open and close for a retiree that had maybe 30 years, and he jumped out against it all the way, and then we never heard no more about it. So that's still, nobody else said anything about it that day, so I guess we'll wait till the mayor gets back and we'll bring it up again.
Well, I think it's hard to kind of track some of that stuff. I got with finance and HR, and records are hard to kind of track back some of that stuff. And just for your benefit too, I know that finance will set up for current employees that, you know, are kind of prepping for the future. You can actually buy a space and they'll deduct it from your paycheck till it's paid for as well. So we have some employees that are doing that, kind of prepping for the future. And they don't want to die while they're working, they want to have it when they're done. So this has always been a benefit to help those families of active people that are working in, you know, a time of need. So.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I agree with your recommendation. It gets pretty cumbersome when you have to start looking back through. As time goes on, I mean, the number continues to increase. This is kind of off the topic and maybe not something for discussion tonight, but something to look into. I'm just curious, and I don't know if you even have a way to calculate it, but you know, at some point we're going to run out of space up there. Do we have any idea how many more burials are possible there?
We've got a lot, and I brought that to council before during work session. We've got, and I don't know the exact numbers, but we are running out on the west end, and our next phase would be to move over there behind the Mount Graham High School. That whole area up on the hill, we've kind of got it mapped out. That would be the next phase, and there's, I can't remember how many spaces there, a lot up on the hill. And then, obviously, the property across the road in a distant future would be cemetery dedicated space as well. And I can get you guys that info,
No,
those
that's
maps
fine.
as well, so.
Thank you.
Any other
Yeah.
questions, or? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll go ahead and close this, work session and reconvene into executive session.
Vice Mayor, can we have a 5-minute break?
Yes?
You have 5 minutes.
We covered everyone.
Yeah. It is a milk.